This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Well, good evening to you. It's been a long time since we've last had a video up at 10 o'clock, but let's get to it, friends. The Edmonton Oilers, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and a coaching change in Cbus. Well, what do we know about that? We have been waiting all this time to figure out where Jay Woodcroft is going, and this seems like, unless the Florida Panthers some reason somehow fire Paul Maurice after potentially losing Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals to the Oilers, this very well is the last coaching change to be made this season, this offseason, whatever you want to say, unless something goofy happens in the next 2 months. We are unlikely to see any other team go out there and make a change. Columbus, of course, firing their head coach, Pascal Vincent, today, and that leaves a hole in the NHL, possibly, like I'm saying, the last one, and possibly the last one for one Jay Woodcroft to fill. Well, why are we talking about Jay Woodcroft as an Edmonton Oilers YouTube channel all this time, especially when the Oilers were in the Stanley Cup Final? Well, it goes back to a little bit of reporting the other week. But before we get there, friends, if you are new to the channel, consider hanging around. Hey, Columbus fans, we'd love to have you aboard on the Oilers train as opposed to the Florida train here for the final 3 games of the Stanley Cup Finals. So, love to have you. That'd be a great time. Let's do this thing. Oilers in 7. We got faith. Let's see what happens. But yeah, obviously the Columbus Blue Jackets firing their head coach today. This was a move that was much rumored to happen throughout the time since Don Waddell took over. However, what's also been rumored is Ken Holland going to Columbus, and I think that's just kind of been floated a million times over to really nothing pointed about it, right? And obviously with Ken Holland still managing a Stanley Cup Finals team, there's really not much to go. But as the video also this evening, talking about Jack Campbell was about, it's kind of the overarching things that are literally about to happen as soon as the Stanley Cup Final's over. We're all swept up in this mania, but it is June 17th. The draft is in, 11 days? Like, there's a lot that is just going to, boom, explode onto the scene here as soon as this Stanley Cup Finals is over. Whether it ends tomorrow or whether the Oilers take it in 7, I don't care. But really, it's all going to happen, right? That's the thing. I don't care when this ends because it's still going to happen, all the extracurricular stuff. Yes, obviously, I care that it ends in 7 and the Oilers win the Stanley Cup Finals, but there is no rest for the wicked either way, right? Is obviously you go into Game 5, lose Game 5, and bang, now we're talking about Ken Holland to Columbus. Now we're talking about Jack Campbell buyout, right? Just like that, trades are happening in the NHL again and all chaos breaks loose. Obviously, the Oilers in 7 delays that a few more days, but then all of a sudden it's June 24th. Now it's June 25th. There's a parade. There's cups up. There's a whole bunch happening. Plus Ken Holland, Columbus. Plus Jay Woodcroft, Columbus. Plus Jack Campbell buyout. You get where I'm going. These next 2 weeks in the NHL, leading into July 1st, quite literally, we are 2 weeks away from free agent frenzy, are about to be the craziest sequence of events one Edmonton Oilers fan has ever seen in their lifetime in the modern era, right? Obviously, the Gretzky era, right? I think there's one certain, promise mess, I wouldn't do this, situation that is a lot crazier than anything that can happen this summer. But that said, there is some big time things that can happen here, and with Columbus making that move, whether it's true or not that Ken Holland's headed to Columbus, I think it's almost a surefire shot if Columbus gets Ken Holland that Jay Woodcroft is your coach. I think, quite honestly, that's straight up. I don't think, based on every feeling that this season had, that it was really Ken Holland's choice to fire Jay Woodcroft back in November as head coach of the Edmonton Oilers. So I think that there's probably still some tangible relationship there that can be worked on in Columbus. Whereas, right, I think for Columbus straight up, the best available coach to you for kind of the caliber of players and caliber of team you're trying to become is probably Jay Woodcroft, a player who's developed players in the AHL, a player who's developed players at the NHL level, a guy who kind of has a more dynamic situation, who is coaching with the 11-7. I think it might be the only place left for Jay Woodcroft at current to go as well, but that's a no-brainer, but you get where I'm going with that, is this is really, if anyone's going to hire Jay Woodcroft this offseason, it's going to be Columbus. And obviously with the rumors of Ken Holland going to Columbus, there's a lot here that you can kind of put together that makes sense that Jay Woodcroft would be your guy. And the beautiful part about this is that hole's now open on the bench, but there were no other changes in Columbus today. It was just the firing of the head coach, nothing else on the bench. And what that indicates to me, obviously, right, as you saw Chris Knoblauch come in as head coach of the Edmonton Oilers. Yes, it was midseason. Yes, different circumstance. There really wasn't much of a change to the bench at all. And yes, the head coach generally has say in who's on his bench, but you'd probably want the head coach to evaluate the guys that are still there before making the changes to the coaching staff, right? So it's kind of, you got a coaching staff of assistants, associates, goaltenders, whatever, sitting just, hey, guys, hold on. We can't make our move yet because there's a couple bang-bangs that have to happen. And if it is true that Don Waddell doesn't necessarily want both titles in Columbus and Ken Holland is actually going to go be the GM in Columbus, there's kind of some situations that have to be figured out. And clearly the Columbus Blue Jackets wouldn't want to make their move prior to, and obviously you don't want to start kind of giving away your hand a little bit before you get going. So it'll be interesting here, but again, it's a lot of connecting the dots. It's a lot of mapping things on a wall and trying to make sense of all the little moves in between. But it all comes down to if Jay Woodcroft, who I deeply love as a head coach, deeply care about as a guy in the NHL who really brought some great moments as an Oilers head coach, and a guy who I don't think was done justice with the Edmonton Oilers organization, very much so deserves that next shot, very much so deserves a chance to continue what he started in the NHL, one of the best winning records as Edmonton Oilers head coach ever until Chris Knoblauch stepped behind there and smashed all that. But right, I think very well he deserves another shot, and this is, to this degree, his last opportunity. This is a guy that, as long as there is some sort of Oilers connection to Jay Woodcroft, I will always talk about Jay Woodcroft because it's a guy that I have cheered for since he went down to Bakersfield, since he did that incredible run in Bakersfield a couple of years back, and a guy that all of a sudden took over as Oilers head coach and gave us some very memorable moments. So friends, that is really all I've got for you tonight. A 2-video upload night on Dolynny TV as we'll see what the Oilers have for us in game number 5 against the Florida Panthers tomorrow night. Live stream here on the channel. No, I'm not going to the watch party. Yes, I intend on being here. We'll see how I handle my emotions, right? I don't think I really gave away the secret why I quit streaming in game number 3, but I will be honest with you here now with a couple days rest and obviously as well a situation where where we won game 4 is I legitimately from the start of the live stream, before I started hitting the record button or the stream button, I felt like crying. I really didn't know how to handle my emotions, and all I felt like doing is shutting down and crying. So it was kind of hard to keep fighting through. Obviously, yes, fans are liable to say whatever they want, especially when things aren't going their way. And I just wasn't sound between the ears to be streaming on game 3. That's why I shut her down early, and thankfully a good little faith restoring moment down there at Rogers Place, jumping around with Patrick and my buddy Chris and the girlfriend, everybody all around there, and Chris' girlfriend, just everybody just in our little group there as I'm going out there, standing in line, trying to get everybody beer, and obviously as well trying not to trip on the beer once it was set on the ground. It was a wonderful time down at Rogers Place, and I'm geared up for game 5. We'll see how I feel tomorrow when I try to not lose my marbles at work all day talking about it. So friends, thanks for being aboard. Jay Woodcroft, Columbus. It's the last chance he has really, unless something crazy happens here this offseason. Let me know what you think about it. Until then, we'll catch you next time. Thanks for being aboard.